Snyder's Return is a tabletop role-playing podcast featuring interviews and a D&D 5e actual play adventure, so you can learn about different game systems and content creation, while also listening to us disrupt everyday life on the Sword Coast. We release episodes every Tuesday and Thursday on your podcasting platform, so come join us as we improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Life's a game, the world's a stage, and we are merely role-players, where theatrical people play role-playing games. I'm Matt, I have been your compere for this production of Vigil, Cold Snap, and I am now backstage with the players. Let's introduce ourselves once again for the last time for this production, starting with Nat.
Hello, I am Nat. I was playing Gwynned, the Divine.
Who would you like to go next?
Strat.
Hello, I'm Strat. I was playing Brier, the Monstrous. Go, Chris.
Hello, I'm Chris, and I played Cameron, the Wronged. Sorry, and Josh, take it away, kiddo.
Hello, my name is Josh. I was playing Jinny Greenteeth, the Spell Slinger.
This has been our cast. I hope everybody's enjoyed. How did everyone find that?
It was awesome!
Very, very cool.
That was a lot of fun.
Exhilarating, so
And
good.
exhausting.
Yeah.
It was a tiring one. They're always pretty tiring, but that one was a lot. It was intense.
Well, that was long as well. It ran quite long for us. But it was worth sticking around for.
I don't know yet how long it's turned out in the edit. But for once, we are synchronous, or nearly thereabouts, with you, the listeners. It's been a week for you since the final act of Cold Snap, and it has been about a week for us since we recorded it as well. Mm-hmm. So we're coming at it with a similar amount of distance. Monster of the Week has some end-of-session admin that we need to do. So let's start with that, shall we?
Yeah, love a bit of admin.
So we have to answer a number of questions, and depending on how many of these questions we can answer yes to, you're all going to get a certain amount of XP.
Holy shit.
Sweet.
That's exciting.
Cool. So question number 1, did we conclude the current mystery?
Yeah?
Yes. It was a giant elk, the living embodiment of the last ice age.
Indeed, yes. Unequivocally, yes, we did conclude the current mystery. Did we save anybody from certain death or worse?
Eric?
National Trust
Yeah.
people?
Yep.
Yeah. I would say so.
Yeah, Eric and the whole National Trust team were roaming about the forest.
I guess also the world, considering this thing was about to usher in a bit of an ice age that would kill everybody.
Surely, the population of the entirety of the Northern Hemisphere now owes us a great gratitude.
Absolutely. But then, yes, Eric specifically, you did save him from being very closely threatened by a ghoul that had taken him hostage. So even without the ice age that you averted, yes, we have qualified for that one. So that's That's 2 yeses. Did we learn something new and important about the world?
There's a bloody great elk that brings in the frickin' ice age.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty important to remember. Let's put that in the diary, shall we?
It depends on who you ask, because technically Brier knew, but they just had to remember that they knew. But for the rest, that was new information.
Also, we learned about what ghouls actually are, which I'll say, Matt, is a real cool way of making ghouls what they were.
True.
The unsubstantiated fears of the privileged.
Hoodies, basically.
Yeah.
Teens in hoodies.
Hooded youths.
I'm interested to see what other people think of that, because that I feel like it's a slight risk, that one. Like maybe the riskiest I've gone with world building.
I was going to say that was 100% you, right?
Yeah,
it felt 100% you, and I loved it.
Yeah, because it's like I like that concept of that they're the things that people are scared of who don't really have anything to be scared of. But it still means that we've got like hoodie monsters. So I don't know. We'll see. I think the flashbacks were necessary to make them okay. But we'll see how that goes.
Mm-hmm. I noticed, Matt, that it felt, going back to what we were talking about, it feeling quite a Hot Fuzz village, that the Hooded Youth certainly had a bit of a Hot Fuzz world end feeling about, the generic teenagers in hoodies threatening the village. That felt nice.
I think as well with this particular group of hunters, though, I think, we saw when we investigated that it was like the remnants of a tracksuit and trainers kind of thing, but I don't think any of us for a second actually thought it was like tracksuit wearing like human thugs. I think we knew that something that something was amiss with that image. I think if you had more mundane characters, then maybe you would have been at risk of people making stereotypes or that kind of thing. But I think because we were all, obviously, apart from Starkey's character, we were very of the Fae folk, and I think we all kind of went down that route anyway and didn't make any kind of stereotypical assumptions. So I think it was a good call.
Well, also it's quite a good shout because Jinny, Brier, and Gwynned are all very, very old, and that is, generally speaking, what might frighten older people is youths crowding around town centres, loitering and acting all scary.
It's also, we've discovered that they don't always look like that, because we know that the ones that Cam encountered, we had Cam told us what he saw when he was younger, and they didn't look like these ones. So there's different kinds of them around. But yeah, I think between all of those various details, I think we've learned something new and important about the world.
Could we add one more, which seems quite a large oversight to this point? Gwynned's god came to this realm and presented themselves to her. That must have blown Gwynned's mind wide open. Surely Gwynned does learn a lot.
Well, I would say the way that the Morrigan is as a god is that she always did have a corporeal presence. Whether that was appearing as a woman or three women, or appearing as ravens or horses or that kind of thing. So the Morrigan actually physically appearing in itself would not have blown Gwynned's mind, because Gwynned fought alongside her in battles. But the fact that the Morrigan has realised that Gwynned is back and has made herself very known, that definitely is definitely going to be playing on Gwynned's mind a lot going forwards. Yeah,
it's fun. I liked it a lot.
Which may lead us on to the fourth and final end of session question: is did we learn something new and important about any of the hunters?
Yeah, I mean, well, the same for Gwynned again, I guess, is that I think her focus for the next time she is appearing in Sherrydown is going to be different. She's got a lot of, she's got a submission now as well, right?
Yeah. If she chooses to accept it.
If she chooses to accept it.
And I think we learned some stuff about Brier as well. Like we say, Brier technically sort of knew it deep down, but we as a group did not.
Mm-hmm. I like the fact that it was kind of so long ago that they had completely forgotten.
This wasn't important anymore.
Yeah. Perhaps we learned that Brier needed or needs to remain more alert to any incoming dangers, and up until this point, their focus had been on mischief and the immediacy of the forest, when actually there are bigger, greater threats out there.
I think also they'd spent a lot of time protecting the physical forest itself, and maybe had started to forget that the forest is actually greater than just a few trees. It's about the inhabitants and how they interact with them and how they come together as kind of like a community. And that's the way that they stay, one step ahead of any threats. So I think that was a bit of a realization for Brier, that they don't have to do things all by themselves all the time.
How very mortal of them. We learned why Cameron hates being called CJ.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was quite fun with the flashbacks with Cameron and Doom agent whose name I have forgotten.
Ernie.
Good old Ernie. That was fun. That had a sort of, the training montage feel to it. And Cameron suddenly, mid-scene goes glassy-eyed and looks up into the sky and remembers Ernie's training.
Yeah.
It felt very Punisher, right? It felt very like a thing out of a Marvel TV universe kind of trope.
Yeah, great. we haven't really done flashbacks in that way on Merely Role Players before, so it was a new storytelling technique to try, and it fit the moment. It was what we needed to tell the bit of the story that we were telling. I think it worked quite well.
It was great.
So by my count, we had 4 questions and we've got 4 yeses, which means that everybody, all 4 of you, each get to mark 2 XP.
Nice.
Whoa, level up.
Level up.
Level up.
Oh, I'd already leveled up, but I am only 1 box away from the next one.
Nice. Yes.
Whoa.
Soon, near the beginning of your next mystery. I'm not going to put anybody on the spot if they want to deliberate over what you want to have as your advancement now that you've leveled up, but did anybody already have their eye on anything? Does anybody already know what they were going to take?
Yeah. I've got what does not kill me is my new wronged move.
Cool. What does that do?
So that if I have suffered harm in a fight, I gain 1 ongoing until the fight is over.
Nice. Yeah, so as soon as you get hurt, you get better at everything.
That's it. Yeah, pretty much.
So next up, anybody got any burning questions or just any kind of feedback or anything as general wrap-up after Cold Snap?
How did you find running a more sort of combat-heavy session, Matt?
I have realised that I need to give... I can get away with giving monsters more harm that they can take.
With this group?
With this group specifically, because I sort of upped the Winter King's harm from what the sharks had in playtime. I was like, oh well, they dealt with the sharks pretty quickly. I can afford to give this guy a bit more harm and a bit more armor. And then all of you with your 4 harm attacks just started absolutely blowing through it.
How much harm did he have?
So technically, I gave him 10 that he could take,
right.
But I allowed him a bit of extra once the Morrigan souped him up, because otherwise he'd have been dead at that point.
Sure.
I was going to say, it didn't feel too easy. It felt like a slog.
Good.
With the ghouls as well.
Yeah, and I gave him a lot of harm that he could dish out as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, his icy breath thing. It was Cameron who managed to prevent the second one. I'm very pleased that he did, because Brier finished that fight and they only had, I think, they could have only taken maybe 2 more harm.
Oof.
Ooh.
Yeah, again, that was building on from playtime. I think most of the sharks' attacks were like 1 harm or 2 harm attacks, which meant that they got a couple of hits in and people were not getting brought down too much and not feeling too... I mean, they said afterwards that they felt like it was they were in peril and it was tense. But from my point of view, I was like, I could press them a little bit harder and maybe push people into using bits of luck to negate harm, potentially. Sure.
I loved that the ghouls in the end were doing, I think it was 2 harm, and Cameron had 2 armor.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun when they attacked him, and it was just him shrugging it off.
Yeah, normally in Monster of the Week, if something does 0 harm, if it's reduced to 0 by your armor, it still does something, like it can still knock you over or it can still wind you or something like that. But because of Cameron's berserk rage... it's literally no effect.
Basically, he's awesome.
I'm all in favour of rejigging enemies in the heat of battle, because I think if they'd only had 8 health and we reduced that within 2 hits, it would have felt not necessarily anticlimactic because the narrative that you built around it was so grandiose, it was very exciting. But I think if I was last in the so-called initiative order and I didn't get a chance to at least get a hit in, I would have felt a little like, no, are you sure, Matt? They haven't got a bit more fight left in them, so I can at least go and zap them a bit. I'm all in favour of that because I'd rather it felt like a big meaty challenge. And the way you described it, a giant wintry elk, the embodiment of the Ice Age, and equal to the Guardian of the Rosebrier Forest, they needed to be big and bulky and scary.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it never got to use, it had different attacks in that second form as well, so it never got to try and eat anybody, which would have been fun.
That would have been unpleasant. Sure.
Its second form was awesome. I do like the whole thing. It's like you find the baddie and then it's got a second, more dastardly, monstrous, disgusting form with its giant belly mouth or whatever it was.
It felt very Resident Evil. It felt very much like William Birkin or Nemesis. You've got like 9 different forms you've got to fight the thing in, and you're just waiting for that cutscene where you're like, right, what's it going to look like now? Oh, it looks like a giant mouth on some legs with some bulbous eyes and stuff floating around the place.
See, I felt it went a little bit more towards like the anime or the Power Rangers, like the kaiju, especially because Brier got big as well. I was like, kaiju battle.
Yeah, that's a shame. We should have all like jumped onto Brier's back and become like 2 of us become the arms, 1 of us become the head.
Gwynned at the back with the wings trying to fly.
Yes.
Oh, that would have been so good.
Combo moves for next time.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I definitely foresee like Gwynned and Jinny like combining some kind of like flying and throw the spell slinger kind of moves so she could go in like.
I very much enjoy being Cannonball Granny. I thought what's the name of the move in X-Men, Colossus and Wolverine, the Fastball special? Yeah. So it's just the Granny Ball special.
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely did all do a like by our powers combined with that big magic.
With the with the spell.
Yeah, so you weren't physically combining, but
it felt a little bit Captain Planet. You know what I mean? Except for it was, I don't know, leaf, ground, holiness, and Cameron. Shotgun.
And frown.
And angst.
No, but deep down, like Cameron is the heart, isn't he?
Is he?
I don't know if he is. I don't know if you remember that final conversation you had around the campfire.
No. Okay.
He is very deep down. I think maybe he's our conscience. Is he Jiminy Cricket?
Jesus, is Cameron our conscience? That is upsetting. We really are. Matt, I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question for you, Matt. For those of you listening, you may have heard on mic, but a few times off mic, Matt has mentioned how he saw us as quite a chaotic group. Whether or not he meant our characters or our own individual player personalities, I don't know. But Matt, my question is, was it more or less chaotic than you thought it would be?
I think it was. I was worried it could be more chaotic. If I'm perfectly honest, at least like you were all on task the whole time. Mm-hmm. You all saw the scope of the threat and were serious about combating it. So yeah, I think if anything, if next time if we see this group together again. Feel free to be more chaotic if you want.
I think the reason perhaps we were so focused is because you specified the threat to something that all of us were going to take very, very seriously. Like if it was something that wasn't directly threatening the forest and was something outside, I think Brier, they probably would have been more likely to take it less seriously or be less, or be a little bit more blasé about it. And if ghouls weren't there, like Cameron maybe wouldn't have been so driven. And again, it was so nature based for the other two. It was perfectly pitched for something that these characters were going to take very seriously and deal with as professionally as those characters can.
It would definitely be interesting in future sessions to see some of these very, very nature based, forest based, fae based characters have to exist in town and like deal with traffic wardens and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was interesting considering the difference between playtime and this is recording. I've only listened to the first 2 episodes that have come out, but it seems very lovely and kind of mundane and cozy. It's schools and rain and vans and that sort of stuff. I imagine it's going to get a lot broader than that. But it did strike me that we were completely separate from all of that. It felt like we were
quite isolated.
Isolated in the forest. Like everybody was happily going about their days, and
but still with the National Trust team as the presence of the normal mundane world in there to remind us that this isn't an epic fantasy forest. This is a National Trust property forest.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, I think just to kind of follow on from Strat's point, I think I definitely had this image in my head of Gwynned being a little bit more lazy and a bit more reluctant and like enjoying kind of sleeping in a hammock in one of the boughs of Brier's tree or something. But I think like Strat said, the sheer weight and importance of what we had to do was definitely there was no way she was going to be lazy about that.
Yeah, nice. And it's great to see everybody immediately inhabiting characters and being well, this is what would be important to my character, and therefore let's run with that.
Do you feel with this series and the playtime previously that us all playing characters and not versions of ourselves has changed the way that we're all playing? I guess you've got a very bit different perspective. Be interesting to know if you've noticed any differences, or it's kind of feeling the same as it did with the Blackshore saga.
I think there's, as we always knew there would be, and this is one of the reasons that we started off playing ourselves instead of characters, is that there's more to keep track of, and there's more to concentrate on thinking, does the audience know this about the character yet? Do we need to put some exposition in here? And that kind of thing. And I'm sure for all of you as players, you've got that extra level of not just what would I do, but what would this character do? What are their priorities? So I think maybe people are making different decisions, perhaps, to what they might have done, especially in something like this where you're talking about you saw the threat and you knew it was important and you went for it. That maybe if we were playing ourselves again still, that it would be a bit more well, why should I? This isn't my problem. I'm going to run away from the threat.
I found it much easier diving in and playing a character I'd already had the chance to create some backstory for. I found it easier jumping into a situation where I'd ask myself, what would Jinny do, as opposed to what would Josh do facing off against ghouls and a giant elk from the Ice Age. I definitely felt much more comfortable jumping in with this character that's completely your own intellectual property that you've come up with yourself and you can play in any way that you want to. And for the 4 of us, because this is the first season we've been able to play, this is our first chance to fully realise those characters. And I felt myself going in directions that I wouldn't have done. I was never questioning, I need to, should I be playing more like how I would actually play? How would Josh actually be here? It's like, you know what, Jinny does what Josh wants to do because I'm creating this character and this story with everybody else, with the 4 of you. So I felt it was almost like the training wheels were off. It was like just go out there and just see what happens, see what the relationship is. I had no idea, for example, that Cameron was going to be my assistant and that we'd have this very strange power dynamic between the 2 of us in this relationship. And yet you threw it at us and I just rolled with it. And it was great fun.
And it was great.
I found it very freeing, personally. I think it was nice to take, because when you play as yourself, when you're playing with your friends, you don't want to be nasty to each other. Do you know what I mean? And I felt quite bad, reflecting back on it. I think I said to Strat, Nat's character just wound Cameron up so many times, and I actually felt quite bad afterwards, the amount of sort of abuse that Cameron gave Donald. And it's and I don't know, I just felt, oh no, and if I was playing myself in that situation, I'd be like, oh God, did I just bully Nat? But I kind of felt like that's what Cameron would have said and would have done. He would have behaved like an absolute tool because he is one, really. Yeah,
and don't worry about upsetting me at all. I totally appreciated that was the character level. And I think, this is the thing, as well, Starkey, we like out of the Blackshaw group, there's people that I know better, and there's people that are, I've only known for a year or so, and you and Josh are in the latter category. And I think when we first met, I don't think we would have necessarily felt comfortable doing that. But I think we've role played together enough times now that, we know each other a bit better. And I am absolutely fine with role playing negative stuff as well as positive stuff. And I think it can only make the world and the characters richer. I think that was actually one of the cool things for me, was that we did have characters that were in conflict and have unresolved things to work through.
It's about separating character and performer, isn't it? And that's the thing when you're playing these games with theatrical people, is that we approach them as a role the same as any other role we play on stage or on screen. I wouldn't get to the end of a play, for example, and feel bad that I'd given Strat's character some abuse or shouted at Natalie's character. You get to the end, you finish, you decompress, and you realise it's all just a fictional fantasy that we've created.
It's different though, right, when you're acting in a play or something, because they're not your lines. If you've got to yell Nat, it's okay, because at the end you go, well, it was the playwright that made me did that. There was never any, like, there's not so much as you, but when there has to be that kind of element of trust and like support from the other players in role-playing games, because it is all you. So if you decide your character is going to be mean, it's all you. It's not, well,
that is true.
That person knew it was coming because we did the read through a couple of weeks back, and we know that scene's going to be a pretty intense one. It just happens, and you've got to kind of roll with it. And it's,
I guess in a way, it's if you're playing the character that you have built up and set up, if you're playing them truthfully to how you in your head have not written physically but written and created, then it's the same thing as acting, right? That is obviously what they were going to say. When I was going through like Gwynned's little preachy kind of speech, I kind of knew that he wasn't going to go for it. It was not a shock that he turned around and told her to fuck off, but it felt right.
I think what's fortunate with the four of us players is that, as well as appearing previously in Viola and Prospero Get Stranded on the Island, we have played off-air in other games and other systems, so we're all not only used to playing in these games, not only experienced playing in games full stop, but experienced with playing with each other. That does help when you go into a situation, because you know how to test boundaries and test limits and how people will react to each other.
That's right. Controversially, us five have played games that are not for public consumption, that are just for us. Never
Outrageous.
Recorded.
How dare we?
And even with people that aren't part of the Merely Role Players group.
What?
I mean, what's that
Shocking.
about?
Moonlighting.
Yeah.
As a way of doing a bit of extra wrap up on Cold Snap, let's do some stars and some wishes. So a star is something that you assign to say, this was something about the session I really loved, either about something someone else did or just a moment that you really enjoyed. And a wish is something that you wish you had got to do or hope that you might get to do in another session but didn't this time.
I've got one, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Only because it rolls on quite nicely from the conversation we've just had. Jinny Greenteeth's star is going to be awarded to Nat and Chris for the final scene around the campfire, because I thought that it was a wonderful moment of bringing in drama through the characters completely organically, and I just thought it was a wonderful way to wrap up the main body of that story. And from a personal point of view, me playing the character who tried to force resolution between the two, it was nice to see it get thrown back in my face, so to speak. Because I realised that when I did the whole being the overbearing grandmotherly figure and pushing Cameron towards Gwynned, both player and character, Josh and Jinny, were thinking, this will be great, this will be a wonderful moment, and they'll get on and they'll resolve and it'll all be lovely and I can potter off into the distance. My work here is done. Bye-bye. See you later. And the fact that that didn't work was wonderful, because ultimately it's about personal decisions and consent, right? And if Chris playing Cameron doesn't feel comfortable in that scenario, then he shouldn't subscribe to the narrative of happy ending, of doing what I want to do. He should do what he thinks is best. I thought you two role played that out wonderfully.
This is also a really nice thing about telling a story over a longer period and over more sessions, is that if this had been the only story we were telling in this setting, you might have felt pressured to have a nice, neat resolution to things. But as it is, we can leave that tension unresolved for another time.
True.
Absolutely. Because if Chris had just gone ahead with how I wanted the story to go, but it directly clashed with his idea, then I've stripped him of his... Of the direction that he wanted to take it in.
I think when I went over there, I had absolutely the intention to make it a happy bow tying moment.
All right.
Interesting.
Yep, just going to bury the hatchet, apologise for pushing her over and just saying, fuck me, fairies are weird, and just walk off. I'd literally intended to do that.
But then again, it's like a cascade as well, right? If we hadn't have accidentally brought the Morrigan in, which is something that I was not actually expecting in this session.
Me neither.
Yeah, I was expecting that to pop up maybe in a later one once we kind of established Gwynned as a character more. But if the Morrigan hadn't appeared and set her that challenge of, okay, everything's got to be kindness and peace, show me that it works, then she probably wouldn't have been that philosophical at the end. So it's all dominoes.
I mean, she picked a poor mortal to back as her champion of love and peace, to be honest.
But that's why he's poignant, right?
Yeah, true.
Because he's the one that needs the help the most.
He just needs a cuddle.
I have a star that sort of follows on from that a little or expands it, which is just I want to award stars to just all of the emotional performance that we got. Like right from the beginning, from the first scene that everybody came together at the crime scene, we immediately had like what I thought was really was kind of unexpected and really hit me was that all of your characters' first instinct was to comfort each other before investigating the mystery. And I think, like, because this is a game and the game has objectives and has dice that you can roll and numbers that you can make go up, that I feel like sometimes, you know, the possibility is that we concentrate on that and on playing the game. But the fact that you all came and you had this juicy crime scene to investigate and find out what's going on, and nobody's first instinct was to roll dice. Everybody's first instinct was, is Brier okay? Is Jinny okay? Let's get, you know, and we had a nice little sort of huddle in the middle of the stone circle with Gwyn's wings around everybody that I just thought was lovely.
Agreed.
Mm. Yeah, it was a long time.
Really nice moment.
What a long while until anyone rolled any dice. It felt almost like those first kind of couple of scenes where we were in the two pairs, and then when we all came together, it was like we've been given these new characters, and we were like kicking the tires and seeing, okay, what are they like? Who are they? What are they going to happen? So we weren't really, at least I wasn't particularly thinking about dice or the mechanics there. I was like, I need to get in. I wanted to take a bit of time and play Brier as a character rather than, because the previous versions, like we all role played bits in like when we were playing ourselves, but you could go straight into what was going on, and that was kind of how the game kind of didn't make you play, but it's kind of was how naturally it went. Whereas this one, I was like, I need to know who Brier is before I can really decide what's going to happen, and the risks that they're going to take, which is what's going to make me play dice. And yeah, it was a very different way of starting.
Yeah,
I was genuinely surprised when Matt asked me to roll dice. It was like I'd been snapped back in the room, like, oh, well, yeah, we're playing a game, aren't we? Oh, of course. Sorry, shit. I better do something.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I could have been rolling dice, failing and leveling up for like an hour.
It was just nice to role play out that scene without feeling the need to roll dice. So there was no point I walked forward and during that very tender moment being like, oh, Matt, sorry, can I roll to comfort Brier? That would have just felt so janky and uncomfortable.
Press F to pay respects.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, take the knee.
I think my stars have probably been covered by the scenes that we've mentioned, but I think an honourable mention, I think, goes to Josh reeling out a whole list of things for Gwynned to get from the shop, and then the ensuing
so good.
like walkie-talkie conversation where you had both Jinny and Karen freaking out at Gwynned being like, and tossing stuff over her shoulder. I have taken a photograph. I did write it all down, and I've taken a photograph of the list as well. Yeah.
Oh, there were lots of really cool moments, I thought. It was sort of like pathos and all of the emotional content I thought was interesting and surprising. I certainly hadn't expected it to necessarily go that way. I really enjoyed the epilogue, generally speaking, from beginning to end. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, the whole kind of fairy funeral was lovely as well.
I liked shooting the ghoul in the face with a shotgun. That was awesome. I can't really... I think I've got a wish if I can go on to wishes.
Yeah.
Matt.
Feel free.
I wished I'd ridden a bloody motorcycle through the forest. But next time. Next time.
Yeah.
I got to say, the bit where we all went from the Grove of Oddities to Brier's tree and the kind of little like individual battles that we had along the way, that whole sequence for me was really good fun. It felt suddenly really pacey, and it felt like an action sequence more than sort of like a perilous moment. I never felt like we were properly in trouble, but it felt like that moment in a film where you get to see the heroes and what their powers can do, and you're kind of like, okay, this is their level of ability compared to these mooks. Can't wait for the big showdown with the big bad that's actually going to pose them a problem. It felt like one of those moments. It was really good fun to play.
It felt like a nice change of pace after we'd had a lot of pathos and empathy and character moments, and it was masterfully orchestrated by the GM to throw some ghouls at us to make the peril rise up and for us to suddenly sort of switch into action mode.
I want to give an honourable mention star as well while we're talking about battles and combat and things to Brier's finishing move and bringing it back to fairy mischief at the very end there while also being incredibly badass.
Yeah. I was so pleased with myself when I thought of that. And then one of my wishes, because afterwards I was like, oh, damn. Because I turned Brier back into their like true form to spin around at their bottom, and I should have Bambied it. I should have turned into a fawn and then done the bit where Bambi's just spinning splayed legs on the ice. We'd already had a few Disney and other movie references. But
I don't know, man. I like the idea about you being cross-legged, sitting on your bum and just sort of slowly spinning, holding this sword upwards.
Yeah, I did like the visual. It was a lot of fun.
I'll start with the wishes as well, that I had plans for the Winter King to try and tempt you all to turn and join him against Brier, which he didn't use because in the end we sort of had the Morrigan to do the gloating in the final fight instead. But he sort of saw that he had an affinity with Cameron because Cameron has icy rage, and he saw that Gwyn was like a Ronin, like a shieldmaiden without a master, and would have attempted to win her over to his side. And I think I had ideas for Jinny, but I think that would have changed because you changed your magic in the end, Josh. I think, didn't you, when you originally built Jinny, didn't you have like ice magic?
I did. I originally built her as an ice mage.
Yeah, so he would have had common ground with her for that. I'd have had to come up with something else in the end. But yeah, so he didn't get to do his sinister villain monologuing at you all. But like I say, we had Morrigan to do that instead. So I'm not bothered.
Think that worked. I think it worked out better in that way. The idea that the Winter King was actually is not this kind of sentient mwahaha evil. It is this. It's just a force of nature. And it has to be. And it just walks and creates the ice and the permafrost. And that's how you just have to stop it. And it's like a feral animalistic thing rather than something cerebral. I think it worked out better that way.
Yeah, it's like if it's awake, that means it's time to kill Brier.
Yes,
that's
but
how
we
it
never
works.
questioned why it woke up. And it said that the ghouls had woken it. And so we ended, and I was like, oh shit. There was the thing. There was a little strand that Matt left us to pick at, and we didn't pick at it.
Never chatted to any of the ghouls for long enough.
Oh, I know.
Chatting to
Cameron
ghouls.
Cameron to thank for that.
I mean, I'm metagaming slightly because I know you haven't, but I've heard the whole of playtime. And it's the standard thing with any kind of Monster of the Week, Buffy, that kind of thing. There's always a thread left to pick.
Oh yeah, it's brilliant, and clearly there's some big, Matt's got plans. Mm-hmm. Look at his face, that innocent
Matt always
face.
has plans.
There's something going on.
This is bigger than a simple ice age.
Just your casual little old ice age.
Might have only covered the space that the Rosebrier forest currently covers. Not sure how all this works. We're finding it out.
I have a wish.
Go ahead.
I'm a little sad that I didn't get to meet any of the organisations that I had established.
Ooh, yeah.
So I didn't get to meet the three Wicked Sisters, the Ladies of the Woods.
Yep.
And no sort of further contact with the Elder Ones or the greater Fey Guardians, which I totally understand why, because if the Morrigan came down and then the Elder Gods also came down, we'd have like Elder God Showdown and it would put everything into perspective. But yeah, I would have liked to have met Connie, Mabel and Ruth.
I'll second that wish. I'd like to meet them at some point as well. I'm sure we will one day.
They weren't necessary in the story ultimately, and we did very, very well without them. But
Don't they live in the Rosebrier forest somewhere?
Yeah.
They were probably fighting in the background. They were probably just dealing with ghouls and smashing them and whatever else. I don't know exactly where they are. I feel there's kind of like a part of the forest that's throughout the centuries, generations of people have considered that part of the forest to be haunted. Or sort of, don't go to the Forbidden Glade, or don't visit the hut that the three ladies live in. Don't visit, the abandoned mill in the middle of the forest. It's always been haunted. I think that they've always just been there. But we established that their modern day form is their kind of more sort of earth mothery, hippie-ish, selling dodgy shrooms to local school kids.
Yeah, they live in like a turf-covered, solar-powered house.
So hundreds and hundreds of years ago when Jinny first knew them, they were probably hideous crones who did full double toil and trouble style magic, but now they realise they'd be a little out of place if they did that in the 21st century.
So one thing that was unresolved, Matt, was my luck roll and getting some information, a dangerous piece of information about the quarry that I personally am pursuing. Yes,
I'd forgotten all about that.
We never followed up on that.
Yeah, we'll have to work out what that should be. Maybe you and I should have a separate conversation.
Sure.
Because what we did learn, without you needing to spend luck, was that the specific one that Cam brained, or the specific ones that attacked Cam, may still be out there in some form, because magic wasn't used to kill them.
Oh, of course. Yeah, they'd have all scuttled away in their little shadowy, smoky forms.
Cam might well be in a sort of Memento situation, spoilers for Memento, where you're like just killing ghouls over and over, thinking maybe that's the one. Maybe that was the one.
Oh, I have a question about how the magic works, and I've not got the actions sheet in front of me. But the magic action of enchanting Cameron's was it the axe that I enchanted in the end?
Yep.
How long does that last? Is that permanently enchanted now?
No,
or is that
by default it lasts about half an hour. So we sort of allowed it to last for that battle, but it'll have worn off by the next time Cameron's in the story.
Dang it.
So now that gives Cameron a bit of momentum to come visiting you, mate. So in exchange, you'll just have to keep working on him in exchange for blessing his axe.
Yeah, big magic could potentially permanently enchant a weapon like that.
I was going to say, could big magic be used to make Cameron some awesome magic ghoul slaying weapon?
100% it could.
Seems like the sort of thing you need to make if the original ghoul comes back.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if he's earned it.
Big magic rock for you to hit it with.
Yeah.
That was quite a nice moment, actually, on camera, seeing Chris realise that he probably didn't kill the original ghouls.
And I hadn't even realised that was the implication of that. I had just I have to come up with weaknesses for these monsters and minions to have. I was like, let's have a nice simple one for ghouls. You have to kill them with magic because they're magical beings. And hadn't even quite realised until we were having that scene that meant that Cameron's big moment, that he might not have fully done the job. So,
God.
Getting narrative emerging in play. That's what we love.
Great.
I have I have a few little wishes, but they're not quite as big or as epic or as important indeed. But I think, as we said, I think because we went straight, apart from the lovely little moment at the very start with Brier and Gwynned and the National Trust Inspector, we didn't have any moments that fully explored her in the human world.
Yeah.
I guess, and being under Brier's tutelage of how the modern world works. So I guess that would be a nice wish to explore, like, what has Brier told her that is completely wrong? And then I guess exploring what her relationship with the Morrigan is now.
Yeah.
Going forward, now that she is known to be back.
So you said a couple of times you weren't expecting Morrigan yet. I mean, I wasn't either. It came out of that magic roll. Was that okay for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it worked. I think it worked quite well because it was almost a taster. It wasn't that the Morrigan was there as a big bad that we had to battle. She kind of appeared. She made the connections and the links that we'd already talked about in the backstory, about the possible connection with Cameron as well. And yeah, she just kind of rocked up and caused a bit of menace, which, yeah. You don't want a god to turn up and completely destroy everything as soon as they do.
No.
You know, that's not fun.
I thought afterwards that something she could have done to, like, immediately show how powerful she is just dispel all of your, like, the protection you'd given yourselves against the cold. Just be like, no, you don't get this for this fight anymore. Deal with it.
That would have been very mean.
Well, in the end, so the what she did, where she turned, like, the fog around the Winter King and put some, like, black strands into that. If any of you had got close enough into his mist, then that would have happened. It would have got rid of your rid of your heat enchantment. Although I'm actually thinking, we'll see. You'll have heard in a recent episode. I'm thinking about maybe doing a little bit of editing post-production trickery so that it's her, because none of you did get close enough to see what the effect of her interference was. I'm thinking maybe I might shuffle things around so that it's her that gives the Winter King his transformation and his second stage.
Cool.
Nice. That's cool, yeah.
Yeah, because then she's actually interfering and it actually has an effect.
Yeah.
So pulling back the curtain on the editing process for all of you lucky listeners. Sometimes we fudge things a slight bit.
Yeah, I guess the other thing with her appearance is that the challenge to Gwynned and to prove that kindness is stronger than darkness. It kind of feels very open to interpretation and open ended as well. It feels like an impossible task, but also an easy thing, in a way, in that it's something that Gwynned could actually try to do, even though it's probably an impossible task. It's not like, well, I'm going to turn you back into a duck.
Yeah, I sort of thought, I was trying to think very much on the fly what she was going to do. And it's like, I figured that maybe because of the way the curse was broken, that maybe she can't do it again. Maybe there's some sort of rule that means that she can't just curse you exactly the same way again. So has to try and do something to try and, like, give you this Sisyphean task that you'll just sort of throw your head against over and over again. It'll be interesting to see how that ends up playing out and what other interference she might bring in. Yeah, it's also I'm very intrigued to see the choice Gwyn makes, because this is, like, we talked about this. I don't know whether it'll have made it into the episode, that what she is offering in return, like a return to her ranks and a return to Gwyn's status as a shieldmaiden, it would be really interesting to find, like, really explore whether that's something Gwyn even wants.
I suppose as well, would that change fundamentally who Gwyn is, if she refused, would she be made mortal?
Yeah.
Or would she still retain her divine powers and abilities?
Yeah, I guess that has to be something that's going through her head as well. It's like, do I really want to be back in this person's service, but I want this power to be able to do what I'm doing and do good?
Yeah.
I have another star to give out, if I may.
Okay.
I'd like to give a star out to the true MVPs of this game, which I think were the dice that we were rolling. Because more of what I can see with the number of rolls that were going on, I mean, I rolled 10 times, I think, and only rolled one failure. So I'm very, very happy.
Yeah, there were a lot of successes early doors.
Yeah, we rolled well.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you all again for playing. I look forward very much to seeing all of you and all of your characters in action again.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. That was really cool.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you so much. Absolutely epic.
And thank all of you for listening. This has been Vigil, a main house production from Merely Roleplayers. It stars Chris Starkey as Cameron Jarvis, Natalie Winter as Gwynned, Strat as Brier, and Josh Yard as Jinny Greenteeth. Sound design for this production is by Natalie Winter, and the theme music is by Alex Pankhurst. I'm Matt Boothman, and I play the supporting cast, as well as editing and producing this episode. We were playing Monster of the Week, a role-playing game by Michael Sands, published by Evil Hat Productions. You can find Monster of the Week at genericgames.co.nz. Merely Roleplayers is a Foggy Outline production in association with Blackshaw Theatre Company. Until next time, if drama be the food of life, play on.